Just a quick one on the AAA approach in action, using myself as an example. I am fairly convinced that I fit the ADHD diagnosis quite solidly. I've had a psychologist friend tell me the same and do all the sort of forms with me off the record. So I often use that shared experience when talking with young people that I work with about neurodivergence. And when it comes to the AAA approach, which is the approach that I'm developing using in my work, it represents awareness, acceptance and adjustment. Now that can be from a support perspective. So as the support person, I need to have my awareness of their needs, who they are, their differences, how they process, maybe their diagnosis, their likes, their interests, all those things. Then I have to have the acceptance to not just think, well, they're choosing to behave a certain way, to actually accept that, say they have fit that PDA profile. It's one thing to look at the demand avoidant behaviour and another thing to sort of sit there and nod in training. Trust me, I've seen it happen. You know, yes, oh yeah, PDA, yeah, demand avoidance. Oh, hang on, they're being rude. You can't talk to me like that. So you have to sort of accept the anxiety that's driving the behaviour. So that's that acceptance part. Then you can make the right adjustment. Otherwise, if you've just got the awareness, no acceptance and the adjustment, you're probably putting the wrong thing. Firm boundaries. Everybody should be using a consequence when they speak to people impolitely. Again, having worked with lots of young people that fit, say, the PDA profile, but also other young people that are just anxious, have experienced trauma, are autistic and overloaded, you know, to me, that type of adjustment isn't helpful. So then we go on, if we're using those 3 A's and making the right adjustment, it will take into account where that behaviour is coming from and how we should then support it. Maybe by backing off, giving some options, just accepting that that behaviour is what they need to do at this moment to keep a lid on other dysregulation, all of those kind of things. Now, when it comes to self-reflection, it's also therapeutically what I'm trying to support a young person to develop in themselves and what I'm continually trying to develop in myself. I am aware that because of my potential ADHD profile, when things become boring, I can't do them anymore. That's not, now can't is an interesting word here. I find it hard to. Because again, I'm aware of it. I accept it in myself now, you know, particularly having thought about it in that ADHD context. I accept that I might have a real cognitive difficulty when something becomes too dull and boring. Because it doesn't, you know, some of the evidence that I've seen, some of the neurological evidence that I've read, research that I've read, would suggest that your brain, it's a part of your brain, I think it's the reticular activation system, but I could be wrong on that. There's a part of your brain that kind of fires when you're engaged and interested, that fires a lot of the frontal lobe activity, making it easier to engage in that thing from an executive functioning perspective. With ADHD, that's, you know, there's not as much of that dopamine being created by something that's just day to day, or even the dopamine tails off quicker on something that doesn't continually maintain the interest. But whichever way you look at it, there is a danger. We would look at disengagement due to boredom or lack of interest as a choice, but actually when we use that acceptance, it's something that is neurologically difficult. Now, that doesn't mean the adjustment is I just quit things when they're boring. There are things that in my life I know I need, and I know I need to keep working on, work-related things, for example, but also, you know, around the home, tasks, DIY, that kind of thing. I often multitask to keep it interesting, which is unfortunate for my wife, because I'll have 5 things on the go for about 6 months, and then eventually some of them will get finished. Not all of them. But also the big one for me is exercise. And I'm kind of using, it's a long video. This might be a YouTube video because it's a bit longer. And I can't be bothered to edit that bit out. So put up with that. maybe it's live. We'll pretend it's live, or it feels like a live, even though it's not live. Anyway, so what were we talking about? DIY, exercise. I need it. I have to do it every day. It makes me calmer, more regulated, more able to do my work. At the moment, a lot of my sessions with young people are in 2 separate gyms. There's an MMA one that I work out of, and there's one across the road that's more strength and conditioning based. Now, because I spend a lot of time in those environments, I don't like working out in them anymore. They're great gyms. They're the best gyms around, as far as I'm concerned. They're the only places I would really go and train, apart from a one-off at, you know, say a fancy David Lloyd or something. But that environment, I need to keep it as fresh as possible for the work that I do with young people. So when I go in there, it's more exciting to be in there around the equipment. So it sparks that interest and creativity around planning the session whilst talking to them about anything that could be helpful. I use that, for those of you that don't know my work, I use that backdrop as a sort of a platform to have conversations with young people, amongst other environments, campfire sessions, things like that. Anyway, sorry, tangent, and we're back. So going back to that, you know, awareness, acceptance and adjustment, I'm now training at home. It's the long and short of it. It allows me to multitask better. I can do emails and all that kind of stuff in between, so it keeps it more interesting. It's fun creating ways to train the body with what limited equipment I've got, makes it more interesting. And again, I've just been in those environments too often for me to be at my best. And again, that sort of, that awareness of what the difficulty is, then the acceptance that you can't just easily change it, and then you can make adjustments that kind of don't force too much change. They might support someone to work forward, but they also provide a scaffold, if you like, in case they can't control that or manage that. So that's, for me, where that awareness, acceptance and adjustment fits from a personal point of view, but also how I would be supporting a young person to understand what they need to do in their lives. What's very difficult sometimes is, for example, awareness that an environment is really difficult for you, and the acceptance that it's never going to be easy, and actually say the priority is to learn. The adjustment there that makes sense, I change the learning environment. I move schools. If you were an adult, you would quit your job or find a different job or ask if you can work in a different part of the building. You know, you could change that environment. You'd have more control over it. And I'm not just, you know, again, this is not about schools, but that is an example where a lot of the time the answer is a big change of environment, a big change of lifestyle. And that becomes difficult when the young person doesn't have that full choice. And that's where we, as those people supporting that young person, need that acceptance part, because we might know that they will never find something easy enough for them to thrive, but not find it easy to change it for them. But sometimes you can. Just ended that on a really bum note, you know, but you can. And a lot of the young people I'm working with when I'm using that approach have already, unfortunately, been through that process of disengaging with that environment due to the stress it's causing or the trauma it's causing or the fact that they can't process the information needed, you know. So there you go. Hopefully that's a brief-ish exploration into the AAA approach. I offer services in the Devon area, so if anyone's interested in accessing those. If not, I've got regular monthly webinars on similar subjects or topics around supporting neurodivergent young people. And I've also got a paid membership Facebook page, which has got all my old webinars. I've done, I think, 20 odd since running Neurodive, and regular lives, shorter videos than this. So yeah, so if you're following the YouTube channel, but you want to get a bit more from Neurodive, then, and also the website, which is all in the bit at the bottom, hopefully, if I get around to that. Anyway, thanks.